All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started with this webinar. Again, my name is Nielsen Ucles from the Ordyx POS department. I'm here to give you guys the final pre-EMV cutoff date. We're going to be doing more updates as we're progressing, going through this EMV change with you guys. But of course, this is the one that we're going to do right now to kind of give you the final say on the things that are going to be ready, the things that need to be changed, and so forth for this cutoff. So, with that in mind, let's go ahead and begin. I just wanted to briefly kind of overview what we previously covered. I know some people may not have watched this already, and this gives you like a little nice recap for those that missed the webinar or missed the previous two. This is kind of what we covered, EMV, why. We're going to talk about the liability shift. We'll talk about the implementations that we're doing with EMV, the tip adjustment, receipts, and hardware options. So let's just go through some of these real quickly and get you guys caught up to speed. And for those of you that did miss the original ones, we have those actually available on YouTube. So I give you here the links, and when we did these webinars, we also have these linked up on our Facebook. We have them on the back office. When you log into Ordyx, you'll see a link to get these YouTube videos. So go ahead and watch them if you have more further questions to get like a full understanding. For the most part, they're more the same. They go more into details. For example, the first one goes into more details on the why of the EMV and how it works. So for example, right now I'm just going to go over it real quick. I'm not going to go too detailed on that. So you can go ahead and watch those for those that missed it. So this is actually what we're covering on this webinar. I want to review the liability shift because this is kind of like the big deal for EMV. This is what everyone's mostly thinking about and talking about. I'm going to talk about a little bit more details on the liability breakdown. We got some good charts from our friends over at Ingenico to help you guys understand how this liability will work in practice in certain scenarios. I'm going to talk about how we're implementing EMV again so that you know how Ordyx is going to work with the terminals, the new EMV-enabled terminals. We're also going to review hardware options again. We're going to talk about the recommended scenarios for each individual types of hardware that you can use. And then the final big question is Ordyx EMV ready right now, basically, or rather tomorrow once the cutoff goes. So let's go ahead and begin. So again, if you missed it, or maybe you saw it before rather, but to iterate again, because even now we still get this question all the time. The liability shift has to do with the change here that we're talking about with EMV. In other words, once this cutoff goes live tomorrow, it's not something that there's a legal requirement that you implement EMV systems. You're not going to have any kind of organization kind of making sure you have this implemented. It is not in that way, shape, or form. All it is now is that the credit card companies want you to have these EMV systems available to you to use. You guys have to be able to process card transactions through these systems in order for you not to be liable for fraudulent transactions. So in other words, when you choose to not use EMV capable systems in a transaction and that it turns out to be a fraudulent transaction, then the merchant will be responsible for that transaction. This is of course in effect starting tomorrow with USA merchants, with the exception of some other places like gas stations whose date is in October 2017. This is our first chart to break down that liability shift. This was going to be provided by Ingenico. They gave us this nice chart. And here you're going to see how the liability shift is going to work, how it worked prior prior before the EMV change, and how it's going to work from now on. This is to do specifically with counterfeit cards. So if you look at the top line here, it's going to show you that currently right now, if you have a credit card that's just a magnetic stripe and you swipe that into a regular magnetic stripe terminal, the liability goes over to the issuer. You guys are well aware of that fact. But come October 2015, this is where it's going to start breaking it down. If you have that same magnetic stripe card and you swipe it through a magnetic stripe terminal, then the issuer is still liable because it's effectively their card. So they're the ones that handed out that card, and they're responsible for that card regardless whether you're using EMV or not, because it is not EMV capable. There's no way for the merchant to make that transaction anywhere more secure because all they have is a magnetic stripe. So that's the reasoning behind this, and that's what the issuer is liable. So I have the other scenario here right before that. If you see the magnetic stripe and you swipe through an EMV terminal, it'll still be the issuer's fault should it be a counterfeit card, because again, it's just magnetic stripe. Whether it was real or not, there was no way for us, the merchant, to do anything about it, so it's going to fall back again on their issuer. Now, this is where things are actually going to shift. If you have a chip card and you try to swipe that through a magnetic stripe to make the transaction go through, and it turns out to be because it was a counterfeit card and so it was a fraudulent transaction, then the liability will fall back on the merchant. So the next scenario, and you guys can save your questions about this afterwards. You can go ahead and ask them if some of this stuff is not clear. And to go over to the next line, and you go obviously a chip card, and you go through EMV, and it turns out to be counterfeit for for whatever reason, then it goes over to the issuer. So kind of to summarize this slide, if someone has a chip card, make sure you go through the EMV card reader. Make sure it turns out to be an actual EMV transaction, and don't use a magnetic stripe terminal, so that you can get out of that, so you can basically not be affected by that liability shift, and it turns still into the issuer. I'm going to go over to the next chart, which is going to talk about stolen car liability. It's a little bit extra scenarios, but the same idea holds, and you'll see it right now. For example, currently, again, if you have a stolen car, but it was swiped through with a magnetic stripe on the card only, right? A magnetic stripe only card through a magnetic stripe terminal, it's the issuer's liability. Commodore 2015. Again, these magnetic stripe cards that don't have EMV chips, if you swipe them like normal, it's always going to be the issuer's fault, because it is the issuer's card, that it is their responsibility to provide the customers with chip cards, and if they don't, then they're liable for these transactions that could be because of stolen cards. The next one, even if that same magnetic stripe is used on an EMV terminal, again, it is the issuer's liability. Now, this is when we start to change. When you have a chip and pin card, and then you choose to swipe that in the magnetic stripe reader, in other words, a magnetic stripe reader that doesn't have EMV capabilities, then you're going to be liable. The merchant will be liable. And that's kind of like the thing here. If you choose to swipe that in a non-EMV transaction, the merchant will be liable for a chip and pin card. Again, well, not again, rather, but we go to the next one. You have a chip and sign scenario, and then the chip and sign scenario gets swiped into a magnetic stripe terminal. It will be the issuer at liability. And although that looks a little bit trickier, but it has to do with how the EMV processes and transactions, and how they set up the standards. But effectively, if they have a chip and sign, if you use a magnetic stripe on it, then it's going to be the issuer's liability. The key here being the chip and pin deferring to chip and sign. So we go back to this next scenario, and kind of the same thing was the one before. If you do a chip and sign and use it through an EMV card reader, then it's still going to be the issuer. The merchant's not at fault. The next one is going to be a chip and pin, and this is where you have to mark the distinction. The chip and pins have to be processed with a chip and pin capable terminal. So here you're going to have a chip and pin transaction in EMV only, and what that's trying to tell you is that you have EMV readers that will read the chip and process the transaction, but some EMV readers will also have the capability of chip and pin, so they can accept the pin from the credit card holder or the debit card holder, and that'll authenticate that debit card holder. So when you see EMV only, it means that you didn't do any pin transaction on this transaction. You didn't use any pin, or you didn't force a pin, or maybe you chose to let it go through without a pin. In that case, then the merchant will be liable. Even if the credit card processing terminal doesn't accept that pin, it will still be on the merchant side to make sure that they have that capability on their terminal. And kind of go to the last one here. If it's a chip and pin card again, and you use an EMV transaction with a pin, then it will be on the issuer's liability. So the summary here kind of goes to the other one. If a customer is using a chip and pin card, make sure that they go through a chip and pin EMV reader, or even if it is a reader, sometimes you may have the option to not do the EMV depending on your process, the EMV chip pin, depending on your process, your credit card processor, but you want to make sure that you always use the EMV pin if it is required by the card. So not all the cards may require that pin, which is why you see the chip and sign there up in the top. That's going to be in the issuer. So it's up to the issuer to say, hey, I have a chip and pin. I want to make sure that you guys do a chip and pin transactions, and then it'll be up to us to make sure that happens. If the issuer doesn't provide a way to do a chip and pin, which they would then have to do a chip and sign, then whether we swipe it or whether we do it through an EMV terminal, it's going to be up to the issuer's liability if it turns out to be a fraud transaction because of a stolen card. So if that seems a little confusing, don't worry. Go ahead and ask your questions toward the end. We'll try to straighten out as best as we can. And in the meantime, I'm going to move over to the next slide. And we talked about this before, but now it deserves iterating again that we're going to be doing what is called a semi-integration, which means that our POS, our Ordyx POS, is going to basically request the funds for the transaction, for the order, uh, from that terminal, that credit card processing terminal. So we're just going to we're going to talk to these terminal devices and say, hey, I have this much with this tip, give me that, process this, and let me sure, well, not give me this obviously, but process this and make sure it's okay. And if we say it's okay, then we just go on with our business. We go on with our day. We record that information and let you know that it went okay. That's what basically semi-integration does. You may hear about people doing full integrations, but you're mostly going to hear that from like full national retailers, the large national retailers like Walmart and Target. They're going to be in a full integration, which is basically their entire system itself is going to do this EMV transaction from beginning to the end. So they're not going to need an additional external device. They're just going to have a little reader that they attach to the terminals, their POS terminals, and process the transactions. But also we'll be going the semi-integrated route, which is what most POS companies for the restaurant and retail industry will be going. And it's also what these credit card terminal companies have recommended, that for our industry is a lot better to go semi-integrated. And we've discussed this graph before, and it's worth repeating again. To show you guys that we're going to support the major credit card terminal processing companies, Verifone, Ingenico, and PAX, and just showing you some of the payment processes that you guys may already be familiar with, and which ones they're going to support. So this didn't change from before. Just wanted to show you that again, and you can go back to this again if you need to check with these to make sure that your credit card payment processor supports which manufacturer. Okay. This also didn't change from before, but I wanted to show you guys again, especially now that we're at the deadline. Which ones of these terminals Ordyx is going to be integrated with? And you have the VX520, the MX915, the MX925, and the VX805 from Verifone. I'm going to go ahead and move over to the next one. Here in Ingenico's ICT, the ICT220, the ICT250, and you have the wireless model, the IWO250, which it's as far as that we know that they've told us that they will be available in December 2015. If there's any updates on that, we'll let you know. And going over to PAX, the MT30, the SV30, and they also have a wireless model that they again told us that will be out in December 2015, the D210 wireless. These are going to be pretty good when it has to deal with the tip adjustment changes that have to happen with EMV. This will be good so that you can take this over to the customers over at the table, and they can just insert the car and input the tip that they want to put in there to kind of mitigate that dynamic change that will happen once the tip adjustment has to change because of the EMV. All right, I'm going over to the next slide. Okie doke, so I want to show you here just what we're going to be working with in the future. Ordyx will be looking into doing a full integration come 2016. One of the ways that we want to do that is using one of those IDTech's iSmart EMV card readers, and the idea is that we're looking into is basically to attach these to like a mobile device, like the Ordyx mobile running the iOS, and you'll be able to just kind of take that around and have the customers input their card there and go through the transaction from there. Other devices like that, like the Verifone E255 and the Ingenico, we're looking into doing these integrations in the future for 2016. So keep posted on that. In the meantime, again, we're doing semi-integration. These are the routes for us to eventually look at the full integration option for our customers. So this is new content here, and I wanted to just kind of give a kind of like a little guideline for the types of terminal you may be interested in getting, determining on your establishment type. So for example, if you have a quick service type of store and you want something that's customer facing and you're going to be able to use signature capture, you can use the Verifone MX915 and the PAX MT30. So this will allow you to take have a customer facing. The customer just kind of goes up to the counter and pays what they have to pay for. If they need to sign anything, they just use the screen on the terminals, and that'll allow us Ordyx to capture that signature actually, and we'll save it to our database, so that if you want to use that feature, you don't necessarily have to keep the receipt, because once we save that signature, we're later on able to print that out, that receipt with the signature. So this, of course, is a lot nicer that you don't have to keep track of all this paperwork. And I know for me, I hate keeping track of paperwork, so that's very convenient and it's a very nice feature if you guys need that kind of have that kind of establishment. Also, the next kind of establishment we want to look at is the table service, and here, this is where those these wireless terminals come into play that you may want to get into, the Ingenico one and the PAX one that we talked about. Um, these will be useful for the tip adjustment, or when you just generally need to go process that information over to the customer's table. The customer doesn't have to go anywhere. You can just take this terminal, and depends on if the customer wants to go anywhere, if the server has to do a lot of walking. But you're gonna be able to mitigate the necessity of this movement back and forth and this hassle with just having the mobile terminal. Just take it over to the customer's table, process the transaction right then and there, and then go on about your day. Um, I want to show you the last categories, and this kind of falls in the same one, but the bars and nightclubs and the food trucks, you guys can use the regular countertop terminals like the PAX SP30, the Ingenico ICT220. You want to use this for just the regular old countertop terminals that you need, and you don't have any specific need like a customer-facing one or a wireless one. Of course, these are the ones right here that you can use, and you can talk to your payment processors to make sure they support, and then of course talk to us to verify that it is supported. And I'm actually going to get to that in a second about what kind of terminals, how you should go about in getting these terminals. But to kind of summarize this, is Ordyx EMV ready? And yes, absolutely. The changes will be available tomorrow. So just to show you where we're at exactly with very specifically as far as the integrations go with the credit card payment terminals, we have Ingenico and Verifone integrations ready to go. There, we tested them, we ran through them, and they're good to go. We still are finishing testing with PAX. That's still in process. We have it all ready to go. We're just finishing testing with them. So anyone that needs to get their terminal set up, anyone that's trying to get the EMV systems integrated, they have to talk to us and to schedule a setup. Now, this is very important here that you guys understand, because we've already had a couple customers call us and say, hey, turn on EMV for me right now. And some of the problems that some of them are facing is that they went ahead and bought terminals that aren't necessarily supported with Ordyx yet. So what you guys need to do is effectively, or merchants or people that deal with the customers that and you guys just manage your accounts, you guys have to make sure that from the payment processor, you first get a list of the terminals that they support, and they will be able to get for you, because that's another thing that happens. Customers sometimes buy through some other third party these terminals, and they're not even sure if their payment processor is going to be supported, because the way the EMV works is that these terminals have to be configured to work with your payment processor. You can't just like get them and it'll work automatically. No, they have to be configured specifically. So you have to talk to them about getting the correct one. Once you talk to them and they give you the right one, or rather they're going to give you the choice of the right one. You don't get them just yet. You're going to get the choices that you have available from them. And you come talk to us. You come say, hey, I'm interested in getting this model or this model. Do you guys support it? And then we will confirm with you that it is supported and that we can integrate with it. And you guys will have a nice integration, and you guys don't have to process external credit card transactions, in which case you kind of have to manage a separate system where you process a transaction and you have to input it in Ordyx. You don't want to have to go through that. We want you guys to go through it. So please make sure that before you buy anything, talk to your processor, and then even then before you buy those, you talk to Ordyx. And then you're able to call support. We're able to schedule a setup to make sure that we cut you guys over to EMV and make sure everything goes all well and dandy. So we're going to open it up for questions. You guys can begin typing in your questions in the chat. I'm going to go over to them. I'm going to review some of them and just answer them as I see them coming. The next EMV webinar is scheduled for October 28, 2015, and this is going to be kind of like not a recap, but saying like, okay, we've implemented this. If there's anything has changed, any updates. Basically, this EMV transition in the U.S. is going to be ongoing. It's not going to be something that people are going to finish overnight. Then not all the processors may be ready for it. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of people and organizations that are basically implementing this from the top to the bottom. So there's going to be changes. There's going to be things that don't work, or maybe things that need to work better. So we're going to be going this on a monthly basis, kind of keeping everyone in touch, keeping everyone updated to see how things are going. So you guys can ask your questions right now. Any questions that we don't get to or we didn't answer right now, or things that still were not left clear, you can go ahead and give us a call back at our 561-807-1503 24/7 support number, and we'll be happy to answer any questions for you. I'm also going to put this webinar, just like the previous ones, I'm going to put this up on YouTube. I'm going to send you guys an email with a link for it, and we'll go ahead and try to answer these questions right now as best as we can. So you guys can go ahead and start asking. I'll go through them real quick, and I'm just going to answer them as I see them. All right, so I got the first question here from Nicole. She's asking, will the turn EMV on button show on the touchscreens or in the back of the house only? Basically, what you're trying to say is, how do we turn EMV on right away? And really, it's not going to be just this nice button that you turn on and it's going to work. You will have to call us first and make sure that we get everything set up, because it's not just going to be like a switch. We have to configure specifically every individual store to work with the terminals that they have. She also asked here, and I'll throw this in because she asked this right next to it, is the VX2520 ready for install today? We do have to first schedule the install, and one of the things that we have to check is that if this terminal itself is ready for the semi-integration. And this is one of the things that we ask that you guys call us, because depending on the version of the software in a terminal, it may be available for us to do the same integration, or have to do an update first before we do the integration. So it's very important that you guys call us and let us know. All the installs won't just happen with a button. You guys have to call us, and you guys have to let us know when, and we'll work with you to get that turned on. Question from Eric. He says, we will be receiving our EMV reader in the next couple of days. What do we do once we receive it? Now, I want to just make sure and confirm that this reader is an actual reader, and it's not a complete full credit card processing terminal, because the difference between an EMV processing terminal and an EMV reader, an EMV reader is just this little dumb device that hooks up to a terminal, and then the terminal does the processing. But if you mean that the actual EMV card reader, the EMV terminal that has the card reader in it, then it's going to work just fine. Well, first you have to let us know which one it is. Um, but effectively, once you do receive it, come talk to us, and we'll see what the version it is, what model it is, and let us know, and we'll let you know that if, okay, yes, we can integrate with it or not. I didn't see you asking here the model, but let us know the model. So, and then we'll go ahead and help you out here. And I looked here at the bottom that you answered one if it is an EMV terminal. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So if it's an EMV terminal, just give us a call back. Make sure that also it works for your processor. Assuming you ordered it from the processor, and they tell you it's okay, then come let us know what model it is, and we'll let you know if we can integrate it, do the semi-integration. And then if we can't do the semi-integration, we'll help you get set up so you can use it as an external transaction. Right. So yeah, so right now I'm waiting for a couple more questions here from everyone. So if you guys still have questions, let me know. I'll probably leave this open for like about a minute or two. And if no more questions, we'll go ahead and close it. So I'll give you guys about 2 minutes. Got another question here for Nicole. She's asking, is there any way that you can send us a list of applications that Ordyx works with on each terminal by processor? Um, but basically, the short answer is no, and the reason is we have two right now that, for example, Verifone is using Point. So our software integrates with the Point version of their interface, the latest version of their Point service interface. And Ingenico uses what is called Telium, and we're using their semi-integrated Telium software on the latest version. Um, and PAX, they haven't really given us detail on the software information, so give we can't really say what it is, what it's called for you guys to load the right one. Um, but that's what we know from the Verifone and the Ingenico. Um, and yes, Nicole also asks, yes, I connect, and that is correct. Indeed. All right, everyone, this will conclude this version of the EMV webinar. So we'll go ahead and close this out right now. We're going to send this in an email as a link. If you have further questions, go ahead and give us a call. But until then, we'll see you guys again in October. Okay, thank you.